All right, so here we go. We're going to talk today about professionalism. The first and the longest topic we'll discuss is what CNRA standards of professionalism are. We'll talk about why it's important to look professional and be professional, and the outcomes that you can have in your games if you start to follow some of these expectations. The bulk of our session tonight will be on that. And then towards the end of our session, I will do a brief overview of the referee programs that we have in mind for 2018-19 so that you can start to figure out where and if you fit into any of the referee programs. And then we'll also talk briefly about the Development Academy for those. I get regular emails from people wanting to work those games. And so we'll go over what the expectations are for that as well. So diving right into professionalism, there's two topics we're going to discuss tonight. First is appearance, and second is behavior. This is sort of a refresher for many of us, I'm sure, though some of us will probably be hearing this for the first time, but we have a need to sort of reestablish what our professional expectations are in Cal North for both appearance and behavior. First, appearance. If you ever have the ability to go to an organized event, if it's a CNR training event, if it's Cal North or NorCal, any kind of training event that's going to take place in a classroom, we expect you to be wearing slacks and a polo shirt. That's sort of the minimum expectation when we talk about referee advancement and people who want to work higher level games. This is a bare minimum. Sometimes there's even a more stringent dress code. So we want to show ourselves professional whenever we show up for training events. For non-organized events, meaning if you go to a tournament and a bunch of referees go out for dinner or something like that, we want you wearing non-identifiable clothing. And non-identifiable meaning we cannot be identified as a referee. The reason for that is the more you wear, and you're going to hear this a lot tonight, the more you wear clothes that demonstrate for others that you're a referee, the more frequently you will invite conversations you may not want to have with fans, spectators, coaches, players, parents, anybody else who had an upsetting experience with a referee and they might want to bend your ear about it. So if you're going to go out with a bunch of referees for dinner and maybe have a beer or something like that after a game, please make sure you're not identifiable as a referee. Third is during a match. We're going to go through a few things here. Minimum expectations for professionalism. Your socks are pulled up all the way to your knees. You have black shoes on, no red, yellow, pink, green, whatever the various soccer shoes are out there now. If you're refereeing a soccer game, we should have minimal color in our shoes. Black socks, the two-stripe OSI socks preferably, pulled all the way up to the knee, not halfway down the calf, not around the ankle, not slouched down, pulled up all the way to the knee. We need to have black shorts on that are just about an inch or two above the knee, but no more than that or no less than that. The really, really short shorts we want to avoid, the big, long, baggy shorts we want to avoid as well. Our shirts are always tucked in. We never, ever put on a referee kit without tucking the shirt in. Button your collar up. You don't have to go all the way to the top if you don't want to. Zip it up, whichever you prefer, whatever kind of kit you have. But don't leave your collar splayed wide open, showing your chest or whatever else is underneath your referee kit. But most importantly, we tuck the shirt in. If it's cold out and you don't have long sleeve jerseys, we need to do our best to make sure that the undershirt is the same color as the jersey or black at a bare minimum. But we don't want to see white undershirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, all those things under our referee jerseys. We don't want to see that. Anything we don't allow a player to wear on, under, or above their jersey or their shorts, we as referees can't wear as well. So anytime we're wearing hats, they need to be black. They can have a USSF logo on them or a Nike or an Adidas logo if you have to, but they need to be a black cap if you're wearing it because you're out in the sun all day. We're not wearing sunglasses out on the field. Prescription sports goggles or sports glasses are different, but traditional sunglasses we don't wear out on the field. There's a perception issue there with you wearing sunglasses. How much are you paying attention? How casual are you being, et cetera, et cetera. We want to make sure we're not wearing any jewelry. If we don't let players wear jewelry, we don't wear jewelry. Men and women who are married, yes, you can wear your wedding band, but that's it. No bracelets, no necklaces, no earrings, nose rings, lip rings, cheek rings, eyebrow rings. If you have a piercing anywhere that's visible, it needs to come out, just like with a player. We want to make sure that we're adhering to the same expectations that we have with players, because if we're not, then we're not looking like we're following the rules as well. It's important that we look the part when we're out there and that we look professional. For anybody who's ever been on a job interview or met a significant other's parents for the first time, walking out on a soccer field for each and every game you do, you're making a first impression for all the spectators, players, parents, coaches, anybody else who's participating in that game. And if you walk out there with your jersey untucked or your collar wide open, or you just generally look sloppy, they're immediately going to determine that you're not a professional referee, and your credibility is going to suffer. And you're already setting yourself at a deficit when you start the game. So it's really important that we look professional every time we step out onto a field. Standards of professionalism. This is where we talk about behavior. I guess actually I should stop and for a moment and ask if there are any questions about appearance. We're going to talk a little bit about when we're not actively refereeing a game and when we talk about behavior. But any questions on these three items, you can either type them or you can raise your hand and Stuart will unmute you.
Looks like we've got no questions so far.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. It's important that we behave professionally, and I'm going to get into a lot of detail about that. We've already covered this to some degree with the referee abuse webinar that we did last month. If you want to watch that and learn some tips for how to address dissent and abusive behaviors, I recommend you go to the YouTube channel that Stuart showed you, because there are some specific tactics we can use there. But generally speaking, when we talk about professional behavior, everything we do needs to maintain our credibility with players, coaches, spectators, any media that's there. Obviously, a lot of our games that we're refereeing day in, day out, we don't have media, but we do have a lot of parents with iPhones who are recording games. More and more digital media is being used for youth soccer on a regular basis. And so just because the TV is not showing up to record your game doesn't mean you're not going to end up on a video somewhere. We want to make sure that you look right when you're doing it. And fellow referees, we need to make sure that we're maintaining credibility as much as possible and as often as possible. And how we conduct ourselves really affects that. So for among our peer group, we need to accept assignments with honor. When I say with honor, I mean honor your commitments. If you get an assignment from one assigner and 3 days later you get an assignment from a different assigner and you've already accepted the first game, you need to honor the first game. We have too many referees now that are accepting games from a lot of different assigners and then waiting until just before the last minute or the day before the game or a couple days before the game and then turning back any of the games they don't want to do. That's really unprofessional. It creates a lot of hassle for assigners, and as we grow our referee ranks, we'll see you start to be assigned less and less. So we need to accept our games, honor our commitments. There is a specific policy within U.S. soccer about assignment priority, but most of the games we're doing day in and day out are going to be at the same level. But to expand on that assignment policy, U.S. Soccer has a formal policy that I'll have Stuart send out when this webinar is over that specifically describes different levels of games and which games are more important or which should be prioritized more in your assignment accepting based on the level of the match. And so, for example, if you are assigned an adult amateur game, when you've already been assigned a U8 game, U.S. Soccer would say that that adult game has a higher priority. And as long as you're outside of 72 hours of the match, you should accept that match instead of the U8 match. So we will send out that specific policy, but 99% of the games that those of us on this webinar are refereeing week in, week out are all on the same level and very likely won't be affected by that policy. But it's good for you to understand that. So honor your commitments. If you accept a game, do the game. It's unprofessional to do otherwise. Some on the field stuff. We want referees to be confident, but we need to be careful that we're not coming off as egotistical or arrogant or above the game. So while we want you to display confidence and instill the confidence of others around you, be it players, coaches, spectators, while you're refereeing the game, you also need to display humility. Be able to admit that you've made a mistake. Referees more and more get themselves in trouble by making a questionable decision that maybe they weren't 100% sure about, and then fighting and arguing with a coach and instigating more problems by defending the decision that they made instead of just moving on or admitting that perhaps they made a mistake. So we need to make sure that our attitude on the field is open and welcoming, and that we're accepting of feedback regardless of who it's coming from. Because oftentimes coaches who conduct themselves professionally can help you learn something about the game that maybe you're missing a little bit. Oftentimes referees don't like to hear feedback from coaches and don't like to accept feedback from them. But oftentimes if a couple of coaches are both saying the same thing, perhaps we as referees should stop and think about that a little bit, because perhaps they're right. So being open, making sure that we're receiving feedback when it's given professionally is really important. We want to make sure that we're accepting constructive feedback and criticism from referee administrators, assessors, mentors, etc. CNRA is investing a lot of money in sending out mentors to tournaments, big tournaments in particular, a lot of on-the-field training we're trying to work into. And you'd be surprised how frequently feedback is rejected by some of our top referee coaches out at a youth tournament. So make sure that you're open for constructive criticism. Now, if someone's not being professional in their feedback, or their feedback is just rude, then that's a different story. But if someone is out there to try to help you and is offering you feedback, listen to it. It may not work for you. It may not be the best feedback for you, but listen to it and say thank you to the person who's offering it to you, because they're taking time out of their life to be there and help you grow as a referee. So it's really important. There's a theme going with pro and U.S. soccer more and more that we're really only interested in working with referees who are coachable. Meaning, if you have any interest in advancing at all in refereeing, being considered a referee more difficult games or higher level games, the first criteria is, are you coachable? And if you're not a coachable individual for any reason, you don't accept feedback well, you fight with people when they offer you feedback, or you push back consistently, we're just not going to be interested in working with you, because there are plenty of people who want to advance and plenty of them who are coachable. So that's kind of a minimum expectation for us. Diving a little bit deeper into coachability. All feedback is good feedback. Now, that doesn't mean all feedback is correct feedback, and it may not mean that all feedback is right for each specific referee who gets it. But at the end of the day, all feedback is good feedback, because if somebody identifies something rightly or wrongly in your game, think about it. Be open to it. Let's figure out if there's something you can learn from it. The best referees out there are the ones who will take any feedback they get, think about it, and figure out how, if and how they can apply it to the game that they referee. When you're receiving feedback from a referee, coach, a mentor, or an assessor, it's okay to ask questions for clarity. If you're confused about something, if you don't understand, ask questions, absolutely. But distinguish between asking questions for clarity and arguing or challenging assessors and coach mentors. There's no reason for you to do that. Those people are out there to help you. There's no other incentive for them except to be out there helping you. And so if they're taking the time to offer you some feedback, just accept it. Say thank you. Think about if it's good for your game or not. And if it's something at the end of the day that you're not able to implement, then don't implement it. That's your choice. But it doesn't do anybody any good to argue or challenge an assessor in the moment. If you ever have questions or if assessor says something to you that just doesn't seem right, you're always welcome to reach out to me and ask. I'm in the role of Director of Referee Development. I'm both the State Director of Instruction and Assessment. And so I am the conduit between U.S. Soccer and CNRA for assessment instruction information. I'm also a national referee coach, so I assess regularly our national referees here in Northern California, as well as around the country. So I'm a respected authority on these subjects. If you ever have information that doesn't seem right, if you just are told something that doesn't seem to make sense, you are always welcome to reach out and ask for clarification. Be curious, be open. We need to always continue to grow and learn with the game. The game has changed so much in the last 10 years. And if we want to continue to referee the games the way we learned how to referee the games 15 or 20 or 30 years ago, then we're going to be in trouble. We're not going to be able to referee these games very well. So you need to be open and curious about ongoing professional development if you want to continue to referee at the best level that you're able. And just remember over and over again that if you have somebody there to give you feedback, they're not there for any other reason than to help you. You can take that information, do what you want, but don't be rude to people who are trying to be helpful, because they don't really have any other incentive out there than to be helpful. And again, remember, we are only interested in working with referees who are coachable. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're receiving feedback. Some social media policy. We never want to be seen criticizing or questioning referees on television. I know it's common to take to Facebook and ask opinions on decisions. Let's be careful that we're asking opinions or feedback and not criticizing or questioning. Because until you've been out on one of those games on television, you truly don't have any idea the pressure that those people are under. And it's irresponsible and frankly just rude to criticize referees that you're seeing on television on social media. It degrades you, it degrades them, and it degrades referees generally speaking. So just don't do it. Be careful about expressing fan sentiment. If you have graduated from the Ballistic United Soccer Club and you regularly go on and express fan sentiment about Ballistic United and then show up at a tournament and referee some Ballistic United games, your credibility may be called into question. This is obviously something we focus on quite heavily at the professional level, but it is applicable everywhere. You'd be surprised at things that people will screenshot or be familiar with, or somebody comments on something and their friend sees it, and next thing you know, everybody knows that you love or hate Ballistic United, and if you show up on a Ballistic United game, you might be in trouble. We don't want to complain about coaches or players or teams. That's just a big no-no. Because again, for the same reason, somebody may see it, somebody may question it. Your credibility is going to suffer if anybody in the soccer community sees you complaining about coaches, players, or teams. Same about referees. We don't complain or talk about other referees on social media. Our world is just far too interconnected now for us to be able to take to social media and talk about those issues in that setting. So we just don't do it. The more advanced we get with refereeing and the more public you are as a referee, we want to make sure we're avoiding political, religious, provocative statements about just about anything. Because again, the more you advance as a referee, the more attention there is on you at any level, frankly, and the more provocative things you do, the more your credibility is going to suffer. Same thing with affiliating yourself with teams. Again, I'll use the Ballistic United example. If you're a Ballistic United fan and you wear a shirt, or you've got social media of you wearing a Ballistic United jersey and you show up to referee one of those games, your credibility will be called into question. So just be sensitive about what you're putting online. The top level games, referees are encouraged to use social media very infrequently just because of the potential dangers of it. Off the field stuff. Don't show up to or leave venues in referee gear. Referee shorts are okay because we don't want you, taking your pants off and putting referee shorts on at a tournament somewhere. But aside from that, don't show up to fields wearing your referee gear. for a variety of reasons. If you get out of your car wearing your referee kit and someone sees you, they'll know what car you drive. And if something goes sideways in your men's amateur game out at a park somewhere and they don't like what you did, now they know what car you drove. If you're wearing your kit in your car, it means you're wearing your kit before you got in the car at the grocery store, at the gas station, or wherever else you may be, and that's not something we want taking place. So referee shorts, no problem, but wear a separate shirt, be it a polo shirt, an athletic t-shirt, doesn't matter, and running shoes, flip-flops, again, doesn't matter. Just don't wear your referee kit anywhere except when you're actively working a match. So our kits, our socks, things like that, we don't wear unless we're actively working a match. If you have a break at a tournament that's anything more than 20 or 30 minutes, take your gear off. If you want to walk around and watch a game, no problem, take your equipment off. Again, you can wear your referee shorts, but we don't want to see referees walking around in jerseys, socks, anything that makes them identifiable as a referee. Because again, if you're walking around and there's a game going on and you're watching it or you're walking by it and a parent doesn't like what the referee's doing, if you are identifiable as a referee, they are going to come and they're going to talk to you. And that's not a conversation you want to get stuck in. So t-shirts, running shoes, just no jerseys and socks when you're not actively on a game. And that includes if you're running to the restroom. If you're at halftime, take your kit off, run to the restroom, use the restroom, come back, put your kit on. It only takes 15 seconds to do that. If you want to put a jacket on over it, that's fine too. We just don't want to see referee jerseys anywhere but on a soccer field. On the field issues. Again, I would encourage you to go back and watch the referee abuse segment that we did last month. We want you controlling players and technical staff by being courteous and considerate. We want you to be fair, we want you to be firm, but you must be courteous and you must be considerate. Because if you have to take any disciplinary action, we need you to be unimpeachable. And we need you to have been nothing but professional and respectful while you're doing that. Work with fellow officials to help them better themselves as well. We all have an obligation if we're seeing people that are doing things that are incorrect to try to help people get better. But again, be courteous, be considerate. Don't boss people around. Don't tell them what to do. Let's see if we can create an environment where the rest of us can grow. And generally speaking, when you're in a soccer game, don't make statements about the game except to clarify interpretations of the law of the game. We hear people very, very frequently telling players, making sarcastic comments if players are upset with them, making derogatory comments about the quality of a team's play or a coach or a parent. The number of times have heard someone make a smart aleck remark to a parent who is not behaving themselves well. We don't want to see any of that. If you're commenting on a game, it's to answer a question that a player or a coach has asked. Nothing more than that. Now, obviously, if someone says, hello, how are you doing? Be a human being, be polite, talk with them. But generally speaking, while the game's going on, unless we're clarifying something about the laws of the game or trying to manage a player, we don't want to be talking. And again, I want to emphasize this as much as possible. Please be courteous at all times. We want you to be unimpeachable beyond reproach at all times. You're going to have difficult situations to deal with. It is your job to be calm and collected in that moment. You don't get to emotionally react to anything that happens on the field. That's not your role. You are the person there to suck the energy and the emotion out of the situation and handle your business. What we just covered is something that we should all strive to achieve, but these are basic expectations for referees who want to advance to a higher level. So again, we should all be trying to do these things, but not everybody's going to. This is expected for referees who want to advance at all. Any questions on what we just covered?
So feel free to raise your hand or type in a question. We're here to answer them. So you don't have a question you want to ask, we don't have a way of answering it. And I'm sure if you're thinking it, there are at least a few other people who are thinking it as well.
Mark, what do you mean by discuss raising to a higher level? What do you mean by that?
I think if I had to take a guess, I'll probably clarify in a second, but how does a referee raise to a higher level?
As in referee higher level games?
That's what I'm guessing.
Okay, Mark, you want to
Upgrading. There we go.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we get into the next segment for sure. Just remind me if I forget.
I'll do that.
Any other questions
Anyone else?
before we move on? Okay, so we had
whenever,
Stuart,
go for it.
I'm looking. We had a question about don't wear team logos, et cetera, et cetera. I mean the logos of the teams that you're likely to referee. So if you're going to a national team game and you want to wear your USA jersey, no problem. Wear your USA jersey. If you're an Earthquakes fan, no problem. Go wear your Earthquakes jersey. The thing to be sensitive to, and just varying degrees depending on what level you referee at, but at the professional level, we are not allowed to wear jerseys of teams that we support in the same division or the same level of games that we referee. So when I was a professional referee, I would not be caught dead wearing an Earthquakes jersey, even though I oftentimes went to Earthquakes games, because I refereed the Earthquakes before. I refereed them in Open Cup. I refereed them in MLS. And the last thing I needed was someone to see a picture of me wearing an Earthquakes jersey. So that's at the professional level. If you referee in the Development Academy, don't be seen wearing kits, for example, the Sac Republic. Because if you referee the DA games for Sacramento Republic and you're a fan of Sacramento Republic and you're photographed wearing a Sac Republic jersey, you're going to be questioned. If you are a Ballistic United player, again, just don't put yourself in social media wearing those things. If you wear them, no problem. If you play for them still, no problem. No problem with having it. Just don't put it on social media. That's the only thing that we ask. Because if you're refereeing games and someone sees you wearing a Ballistic United jersey and you're refereeing Ballistic United, you open the door for someone to be critical of your credibility. And that's what we want to try to avoid. So again, if you play for Ballistic United, you got a jersey, no problem. Wear it all you want. Just don't put it on social media, because that's where we get into trouble. Other questions?
John Shield asked about players who are referees in the club that they also referee for or play for. So a U17 player who's reffing a U6 or a U12 game, he both plays and refs for Ballistic United. Is that something that
Again, don't put it on social media. Just don't put it on social media. That's all we ask. And again, these are expectations that we have for referees that want to advance. And so if you're a guy that just goes out and referees youth soccer every weekend and that's all you ever want to do, that's perfectly great. We need so many of you to be doing that, and that's fantastic. Just be careful, because all we're trying to do here is make sure that we're closing off doors for people to challenge your credibility. Our goal is to make your games easier on a day-to-day basis. And it's our jobs to predict, things that can undermine your credibility and provide you solutions to make sure it doesn't happen. Any other questions on any of this?
We got one more. Henry, I prompted you to unmute. If you can unmute your mic. There we go. We can hear you.
Oh, hi. So I'm wondering, sometimes at halftime with another referee, I'll be like shooting on goal or something like that. And is that okay? Or is that not professional?
What do you think? Let me ask you, what is your thought on that?
Well, I haven't really received any negative feedback about that. I mean, so far it's been okay, but I'm just wondering what you think.
Sure. So are you there as a referee or a player?
Referee.
Do referees kick balls?
Sorry?
Do referees kick balls?
No.
So is that your answer?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
It's a good question. It happens a lot. All right. Anything else? Whoops, sorry, folks. And we started clicking things. All right. Then we're going to move on, and we're going to cover referee development. This is where we'll talk a little bit about upgrading and advancement within refereeing. CNRA has 3 primary modes of referee development. At the very top of the pyramid, we have the Elite Referee Program, and I'll dive into a little bit more detail about what that is, but it's a program specifically designed for referees who have ambition to work professional matches, MLS, USL matches on a weekly basis. So we take people who have demonstrated through their work in some lower level programs that they have that ambition, and the expectations are exceedingly high. The Elite Referee Program is designed to prepare people to be considered by PRO for inclusion in the professional match officials in the United States. So it's a very, very tough program, and we are very, very discerning with who we accept into that program based on their match history and their commitment to refereeing. We have a referee mentoring program. This is an area where we're starting to invest a lot of resources. We're at the beginning phases of it. But we'll talk a little bit more in detail there. And then we have our web-based training, which is what we're doing now. So within the Elite Referee Program, we have 4 tiers. And the tiers are all connected directly to assignments that we are responsible for. So the Elite Referee Group is a group of about 20 match officials who regularly work USL and NWSL matches here in Northern California. A few of them travel out of state for NWSL, but the Elite Referee Group is the referee pool that we assign USL matches in both Northern California, so the Fresno FC and Sac Republic, as well as Nevada. There's a team in Reno and a team in Las Vegas. Our referee group work those matches week in, week out for about a 9-month season. The Elite Referee Development Group is a group of about 35 referees that are training to be promoted into that USL level. And so we have semi-monthly webinar training. So once every 2 weeks, we have an hour-and-a-half webinar where we do clip analysis, high-level referee training, and we have quarterly meetings in San Ramon. We get the whole group together in person, and we bring in a lot of guest instructors from pro and top instructors from U.S. Soccer come in and train referees on a quarterly basis. Below that, we have a training group, and this is the group that we use for anybody who's new to the program, has expressed an interest in potentially participating in the program. We bring them in as trialists in this training group, and we really focus on maintaining the off-the-field expectations. So there's regular work they have to do, attending webinars, regularly work in Development Academy matches. That group in particular, I'll take a step back. The Elite Referee Group, as I mentioned, works USL matches. The Elite Referee Development Group works all of the U19 DA games, as well as MPSL and the PDL. The training group works lower level DA games, so the U14s and below usually, and folks who do well in that training group get promoted up to work the U19 games in the Development Academy. And then we have the Development Academy referee pool for those who maybe don't want to pursue the Elite Referee Group, but have been a part of the program and want to maintain refereeing those games. So we tie very closely our 4 different groups within the Elite Referee Program to the kind of assignments that they're working, because more and more that's really the benchmark for advancement, is what level of games are you being trusted to take responsibility for. So those are the 4 aspects of the Elite Referee Program. Currently, the methodology for us is to send a request for consideration to me if you're interested in that program. We require a game log so we can evaluate the matches you've been working. And we accept a few people a year into this program. So if you have any questions about that, you're welcome to email me. I'll put my information up here shortly. The mentoring program, CNRA has started investing resources to have current and former national referees, current national referee coaches, and state instructors and assessors regularly out at fields mentoring referees on the field. So we send people out to big tournaments. any place where lots of referees are gathering to work games, we send out coach mentors to work with people. The methodology here is that they walk around and they observe 15 or 20 minutes of a game. They approach referees at halftime and after games to give them some brief feedback on some things that they saw and things they can improve upon, and hope that they go out in their next game or in their next half and employ those things. It's also an identification methodology for us as well. So these people who are out watching referees, if they see somebody that demonstrates potential, they forward those people on to myself, and we explore bringing them into our referee training programs. So we're expanding this now. We're working on the infrastructure for it. It'll probably be about 6 months before we launch it, but we're working on the infrastructure now to expand this mentorship program to a big chunk of our entry-level referee program, so that as new referees are coming on board, we're connecting referees with local referee coaches so that they can have continued ongoing mentorship on the field. And then, of course, the web-based training that we started last month, which we're a part of right now. So we are doing monthly webinars for grassroots referees, so grade 8, grade 7 referees, as well as state referees. We do a separate webinar for state referees, and then state referees who show potential for the elite referee program, we bring into the training tier, and they start participating in semi-monthly webinars. Any questions about any of this, you're welcome to ask now, or you're welcome to send me an email with my information there. We can take some questions now if you would like.
We got a couple questions pertaining about how does one join the elite referee program? Are there any grade requirements, experience requirements in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I'll answer the thing about referee grades. We don't use referee grade as a litmus test for getting into the program. What we look for primarily are referees who have the ambition to work at the professional level, regardless if they're 18 years old and still a grade 8, or if they're a state referee. If they have that ambition and they're willing to do the work week in, week out to achieve that, then we have a place in the program for them. Having said that, we are very discerning with who we bring in. So having someone say, yeah, I want to work USL game, we're going to get you a place in the Stuart, don't type or mute yourself, please.
Oh, sorry.
So the process by which people can apply, we will accept emails of inquiry. Obviously, I said, please send me your game log so I can go look at what kind of work you're doing. If somebody who has been working high-level games and has some of the criteria that we look for submits a request to participate, there are usually some continuing questions that we ask so that we can suss out exactly how committed you are to this program. Some of it is very subjective, and we bring you into the training tier to sort of test you for a little while to make sure you're actually committed to it before we start to invest the significant resources that we invest in our top level referees. Mark, the question about the old grade 7654 is now gone. No, it's not gone, but increasingly, at least with referee advancement, there's not a strict adherence to the grade versus the level of game that you get. So for example, pro and top referees assigning in US soccer don't reserve professional matches for national referees anymore. If there's a referee that shows promise to work the professional game and they're still a grade 6, they'll work in the USL. We're focusing more on the talent that somebody demonstrates versus what level they've managed to achieve yet. But having said that, I know US Soccer passed something at their recent AGM where, and I don't know if I should say this out loud or not, but they are looking at removing the numbers and just having grassroots referees, state level referees, national referees, and professional referees. That's a directive from FIFA that they're trying to standardize around the world. Can instructors audit the grade 7 course or the state referee webinars? Absolutely. We currently have a couple of different methods for making sure instructors are getting ongoing feedback. We're actually, as part of these webinars, starting to introduce instructor webinars. So you won't have to just sit in on the referee ones. There will also be instructor-only webinars where we're going over a lot of the same material. We try really hard when we're having a referee webinar for referees to get to ask the questions because they come at it from the referee perspective, and then having a separate instructor webinar so that instructors can ask instruction-based questions and we're not wasting each other's time across those two different groups of people. So we're trying more and more to expand our offerings here. A list of tournaments that we mentor throughout the season. We're actually working on that right now. Stuart, one of his goals right now, one of his roles in his job is to start compiling this and creating a calendar feature that can go on the homepage of our website so that at any given time you can go and see what's coming up in the next month and where CNRA plans to send mentors. So we're actively working on that now. This is a newer program that we're trying to put better infrastructure in for. Can you be under 18 elite referee program? Yes, but it would be highly unusual for that to happen. Just because it's very doubtful that somebody who's under the age of 18 has been able to work the volume of games that are needed to have the sort of practical experience to apply when we get into training. So I won't say it can't happen. I just say it would have to be a very unusual case.
I think to give people a better idea of the elite program, how many people are currently in it, or how many people are you looking to in each tier?
In the elite referee program, so the group that are actively working USL games, we have 16 referees currently. In the development group, we have 38, I believe, and in the training tier, we have 14. So I think it's all about maybe 60 or 70 referees total in that program. Between the three levels.
Okay, is there any other questions? Please raise your hand or type it out. We still have we're going to talk about upgrading in a minute. Is there any way someone can get an invite to the state referee webinars that are not state level referees?
No, because they're designed for state referees. Talking about upgrade, there's a policy document that we're working on right now to make it very clear, but for upgrade to from grade 8 to grade 7, currently does not require an assessment. That was a policy from US Soccer. So we are hosting online courses. The grade 7 course, referee course from US Soccer will be delivered online, probably on a quarterly basis, so that referees have regular opportunities to upgrade from grade 8 to grade 7. Grade 7 to grade 6, so from a referee to a state referee, requires 2 assessments and taking the grade 6 course, which again will be delivered online because it's the on-the-field performance that we're the most interested in. You have to become a state referee, as Stuart mentioned earlier, it's actually 40 matches at U16 or above and 10 matches at the adult level before you qualify to be a state referee. And you have to have been...
That's for grade 7.
Yeah.
Grade 8 to grade 7.
Sorry. Yeah, I apologize. I'm confusing that. I apologize. I've been looking at the grade 7 thing all day. We will post probably within a couple of days. It's something Stuart's working on right now. The full policy document for all expectations for 2019 registration. So that'll be up shortly. The 2018 version is still online currently, and there's not going to be any significant changes to that. So if you're at all curious about it right now, you can go and look at that. Any other questions before we move on to the Development Academy?
Okay. So we do have one more for upgrades that feels like a good segue to what you just answered. So where can you find schedules for adult matches to upgrade to 7?
Sure.
So
yeah, that's a tough one for us, honestly, because CNRA is a referee service provider, basically. We don't house schedules for matches, for assigners, etc. We do have a program called Find an Assigner on our website where you can go and look up assigners in your area and try to figure out if they assign adult matches or not. But I would recommend going to CSAN's website, so California Soccer Association North, to their website. They should have a list of all affiliated adult leagues. and you can try to find some that are in your area. But CNRA is not currently in a place where we can post schedules for adult matches. You have to build a relationship with an assigner or prove to them that you're able to do adult games before they'll get assigned. How do you get access to last month and this month's webinar information? The recordings of these webinars will be posted on the Facebook, on the YouTube channel that Stuart mentioned earlier, and he will send out a link to it as well. And then a question about the grade 7 webinar next week. That will actually be a 2019 registration. That was what we decided to do for that one, I'm pretty sure. But if someone really wants it for 2018, you can do that as well.
Oh, sorry.
Any
Okay.
other questions before we move on? Okay, then we will go ahead and move on to the last thing, U.S. Soccer Development Academy. I get a lot of requests for people to work these games, and so we're just going to start including this information now as we move forward. U.S. Soccer Development Academy is, the highest level youth soccer that exists in this country. And accordingly, we use it as a top training league for referees that are the top referees in the country. And so here in Northern California, we are striving, though we're not 100% there yet, to use Development Academy as a training league for people who really want to have growth and ambition in refereeing soccer. There's a significantly higher level of expectations for referees in this league, primarily because every single MLS club has a Development Academy side, and they play in this league week in, week out. And MLS clubs in particular, and now starting to see some USL clubs, are financially incentivized to develop what they call homegrown players. Homegrown players are players that have been in their academy system for a couple of years and get signed to a professional contract. When they do that, when a club signs a homegrown player, that whatever salary they pay them does not count against the salary cap. And so it's a really good method for MLS to incentivize player development in this country. What it means for us as referees is that we're out on the field with players that are being developed by MLS clubs for future professional contracts, which means the clubs look at these players as assets. They are human assets for these clubs who want to develop these players, sign these players into professional players, and then eventually sell them on to other clubs and make money from it. What that means for us is that we have to really protect these players. The competition level is high, the skill level is high, and the refereeing has to be to the same level or players get hurt. And when players get hurt, teams lose assets. And that's something that we have to be very careful about. So there's a very, very high level of expectation in the Development Academy. Every single coach in Development Academy, by and large, is a professional paid coach. Particularly the MLS and the USL clubs, which are probably about 50 or 60% of the clubs now in Development Academy. These are full-time professional coaches. This is how they make their living. And they have the same expectation of professionalism from the referees. So we have to have the professional appearance we talked about. There's 3 or 4 levels deeper that we go with U.S. Soccer Development Academy referees. The demeanor on the field must be professional at all times. They have to fully be versed in the Development Academy referee manual and the rules of competition and the substitution rules. There are very elaborate substitution rules, and U.S. Soccer tracks every minute that every player in Development Academy plays each single week. There is a massive database that U.S. Soccer keeps so that they're monitoring how much their players are playing on a week-to-week basis. U.S. Soccer sends out professional scouts to a lot of these games who are looking for players in the national team pools at each age level. So these games are watched incredibly closely, and you have to be keeping track of all the information. So if you do an incorrect sub and you don't enter that information correctly, you're distorting data at U.S. Soccer, and they're going to call you and they're going to fuss about it. There's just a really high level of pressure and expectation with these games. And so we have to be very, very careful and discerning with who we assign to them. So we are working really hard to make the Development Academy into the training tier for referees who have the ambition to work professional soccer in this state. If you're interested in this and you think you are ready for this challenge, here's how you go about getting involved in Development Academy. You need to, again, submit a recent game log to me and say that you have this interest. You'll notice that the same process exists for being considered for the training tier. We very closely align what takes place in the Elite Referee Development Group with what takes place in Development Academy. So those two go sort of hand in hand. Once you send me that information, if you are accepted to referee in this league, a profile will be created for you in the U.S. soccer version of Game Officials for assignment and assessment and reporting. If you are in Game Officials now, that is a different Game Officials profile than what will be created for you to work in the Development Academy. They have a completely different platform that they use. We have to create a new profile for you. You have to go in and update your availability. And I will give you, if you're selected for this, we have a training webinar that we do before people start working games so that they know what the expectations are. And then all assignments and all match reporting comes in that U.S. Soccer Game Officials profile.